There's a creek I walk past mornings, maybe 50 yards from where I sleep. Yesterday I stopped at the limestone shelf I've passed 100 times and noticed the moss on its north face had gone bone dry 3 days before any rain was forecast. I knew weather was coming before noon, not because I checked an app, because I was paying attention. That is what these 25 mountain secrets are about. Number 14 involves a plant most folks fear, and number 2 gives you a weather warning written across the night sky. Keep watching, and let's count them down. Number 25, reading the ridge. I was 10 when an old man stopped on a trail, pointed across the valley, and explained not what a ridge was called, but what it meant. He showed me where water would run, where cold air would settle, and which face would dry first after rain. A ridge is more than high ground. Its direction reveals the drainages. Its slope tells you where snow lingers, where morning sun reaches first, and where wind funnels through a saddle. North-facing slopes stay cool and wet. East-facing slopes dry earlier. Low pockets collect cold air after sunset. A map tells you where the ridge sits. The ridge tells you how the whole country behaves. When fog drops or a trail disappears, that understanding becomes a compass you already carry. I still stop on high ground and read the folds before I move, because water, wind, and cold always obey the shape beneath them. Number 24, laurel hell. I've seen grown men get lost 30 yards from a trail inside mountain laurel and rhododendron. The branches lock together, the ground drops without warning, and every direction looks the same. Old-timers called it laurel hell because that name was earned. The mistake is fighting uphill through it. Laurel grows thick along wet hollows and drainages. Stop forcing your way through the branches and feel the slope beneath your boots. Follow it downhill. Water is usually close, and water leads toward open ground, roads, or settlements. Panic makes the thicket smaller and your choices worse. The drainage gives you direction when your eyes cannot. Number 23, bark side up. My grandfather stacked firewood like he was building a wall. Bark up on the top pieces, bark facing outward on the exposed rows. I thought he was being particular until I stacked my first winter's wood wrong and listened to it hiss in February. Bark sheds water, exposed grain absorbs it. Lay split wood bark side down, and rain enters the fibers you worked all summer to dry. Stack the outer rows bark out, and they become a rough roof for the center of the pile. Wet wood does not become dry because you build a hotter fire. It becomes dry because you respected what the bark was made to do. Number 22, the feather stick. The first feather stick I made in hard rain looked like pale curls frozen along a branch. The outside wood was soaked, but my knife exposed the dry heart beneath it. A feather stick works because thin curls catch heat faster than a solid piece of wood, while the uncut base holds them together and shields the smallest flame. It takes practice to make those curls without slicing them free. Practice when your hands are warm, not when you are wet, cold, and shaking. Matches fail, lighters empty. Dry wood still exists inside a wet stick. Skill is what reaches it. Number 21, reading ice. My uncle told me never to trust white ice. He was not speaking in riddles. He was teaching me to read structure from color. Clear blue ice forms slowly and tightly. White ice holds trapped air and is weaker than it looks. Gray ice often means water is moving underneath or thawing from below. Thickness matters, but color, current, temperature, and recent weather matter too. I read ice from the bank before I ever consider stepping onto it, and if I am uncertain, I stay off. The ice does not care how confident you feel. Confidence has no weight rating. Those first 5 secrets are not really about strength. They are about noticing trouble early enough that strength is never tested. The ridge, the drainage, the bark, the wet stick, the color of ice, all of them are already speaking. Old mountain people were trained to listen before acting. That was their first tool. The next secrets show what they built once that attention became habit. Number 20, the spring box. Up a holler from where I grew up, a house has been gone for decades, but its spring box still runs. Cold water rises through limestone into a small stone enclosure and leaves through a pipe set long before electric pumps reach that road. A spring box protects the point where groundwater emerges before leaves, animals, light, and surface mud reach it. Constant flow limits stagnation. Gravity carries water downhill without a motor. The old builders understood that clean water begins with protecting the source, not fixing contamination afterward. Any spring should be tested before people depend on it, but the principle remains. A box also needs maintenance. Leaves cleared, stone joints checked, overflow kept open, and animals kept away from the source. The spring does not know the power is out, but neglect can ruin what good ground provided. Number 19, the buried pantry. I have eaten February carrots pulled from a root cellar that tasted sweeter than anything in a grocery bin. A cellar is not merely a cold hole. It is a system built around soil temperature, humidity, airflow, and the behavior of food. Below the frost line, the earth changes temperature slowly. Vents control moisture. Apples must be separated because the gas they release speeds the aging of nearby vegetables. The door, floor, shelves, and drainage all matter. A refrigerator fights the season with electricity. A root cellar borrows the steadiness of the ground and keeps working in silence. Number 18, lard and ash. After hog butchering and a winter of wood fires, every homestead had two things modern people throw away: rendered fat and ash. Lard protected leather, coated iron against rust, waterproofed certain materials, and carried herbs in simple salves. Wood ash is alkaline and mildly abrasive. Mixed correctly with water and fat, it became the basis of soap. Used dry, it cleaned iron and helped control moisture around stored materials. These were not magic tricks. They were household chemistry learned through repetition. People knew which ash came from clean hardwood, which grease had been rendered fully, and when a mixture was too strong for skin or cloth. The store was miles away. The fire and the hog were already home, so waste became raw material. Number 17. The sound of a thing. I learned to hear a chainsaw begin to bind before it kicked. The engine note tightened for half a second, and that change gave me time to ease pressure and shift position. Old farmers listened to tools, buildings, mills, and animals the same way. A hot saw sings differently. A loose wheel repeats the same bad note each turn. A cow in real distress does not sound like one merely complaining. Early failure often announces itself through rhythm, pitch, or silence, before a warning light ever appears. By the time the machine tells you something is wrong, the problem may already be expensive. I still shut a tool down when its note changes, even when it appears to be working. 5 minutes of inspection costs less than a broken chain, a burned bearing, or a frightened animal. Your ears usually heard it first. Number 16, reading the livestock. My grandfather checked the cattle before he checked the sky. Cattle sometimes settle before rain. Horses turn away from hard wind. Hogs may pull bedding together ahead of colder weather. No single behavior is a guarantee, but a whole herd changing at once is information. Animals live inside humidity, pressure, wind, and temperature. They feel shifts modern people notice only after opening an app. My grandfather never trusted one sign alone. He compared the animals, the clouds, the smell of the air, and the direction of the wind. Animals do not forecast weather, they respond to it early. That difference is what makes them useful. One restless horse means little. Every animal turning the same direction while the leaves show their pale undersides means I start checking doors, loose tools, and the sky. A sign gains weight when other signs agree. The first 10 secrets all begin with reading: terrain, wood, ice, water, tools, animals. The information was always present. The old people simply stayed close enough to recognize it. Modern convenience lets us trade attention for ease. That bargain feels harmless until the easy system disappears. What follows is where observation turns into action, and number 14 proves how dangerous knowledge becomes when the method is separated from the material. Number 15, slippery elm and jewelweed. Jewelweed grows near wet ground, often close to poison ivy. Old mountain families crushed its watery stems and used the juice after exposure. Some people still find it soothing, though it is not a guaranteed prevention or treatment. Slippery elm inner bark, dried and mixed with warm water, creates a thick mucilage traditionally used to coat irritated throats and stomachs. The useful property is physical. It becomes smooth and protective. These plants were practical household materials, not miracle cures. Positive identification matters. Serious symptoms need proper care, and traditional use is not permission to guess. The pharmacy moved in. The plants never left. Number 14. Poke salat. Pokeweed is tall, purple-stemmed, and toxic when mature. Its roots, berries, and older growth can cause serious poisoning. Yet people across Appalachia once prepared very young spring shoots through a strict traditional process learned directly from experienced cooks. My grandmother watched the color of the stem, the age of the shoot, and every change of water. She made me observe several times before I touched anything. The lesson was not bravery, it was precision and restraint. This is history, not a recipe. Nobody should learn pokeweed preparation from a video or experiment alone. The old people did not casually eat poison. They carried exact knowledge, and they knew when not to use it. Number 13. Smoke and salt. Behind my grandmother's old foundation stands a smokehouse darkened by a century of hickory. On warm days, the boards still hold the smell. Salt removes moisture from meat. Smoke adds surface compounds and more drying. But the old smokehouse was not simply meat hung over fire. Temperature, airflow, cut size, salt level, and time were controlled with care. Traditional curing varied by climate and meat, and mistakes could be dangerous. The important secret was not smoke preserves food. It was that preservation is a managed system. Fire, salt, air, and patience had to agree. They checked the meat, adjusted draft, watched humidity, and knew that smell alone could not prove safety. The smokehouse worked because the people running it understood every part and never treated tradition as permission to become careless. Number 12. Wool in the rain. Wet cotton against the skin in cold wind can drain body heat quickly. I learned that during an October walk that began mild and ended with rain running from my sleeves. Wool absorbs moisture, yet keeps trapped air inside its crimped fibers, so it continues insulating better than cotton when wet. Modern synthetics can be lighter and faster drying, but wool remains forgiving when weather turns ugly. Mountain families wore it because cold and wet often arrived together. They layered it so sweat could escape, kept a dry piece protected for camp, and changed before exhaustion made simple work difficult. They did not need the word hypothermia to understand the consequence. Clothing is not judged by how it feels in the cabin. It is judged by what it does after the sky changes. Number 11. The notch and the peg. I helped dismantle a corn crib built around 1870. Its wooden pegs were swollen tight, and the joints still held after generations of weather. Several newer nailed additions had already failed. Wood expands and contracts. Good joinery allows that movement instead of fighting it. A mortise, tenon, notch, or hardwood peg can tighten as humidity changes, while nails may loosen and split the surrounding grain over time. The builders were not choosing a slower method because they disliked progress. They were working with the material instead of forcing it. A nail gun builds quickly. Good joinery remembers the next 100 winters. Now we have moved from reading the world to working with it. Feather sticks, spring boxes, smokehouses, wool, and joinery succeed because they respect the nature of the material. Modern products often hide that nature from us. They work beautifully until a condition changes. The next secrets matter when the weather, terrain, or your own decisions leave very little room for error. Number 10. The high camp rule. One October, I camped in a hollow that looked perfectly sheltered. By midnight, frost covered the valley floor, while the slope above stayed clear. Cold air is dense and drains downhill, pooling in low ground. A valley bottom can become much colder than a nearby slope on a calm night. Ridgetops create the opposite danger: wind exposure and lightning. The better site is often partway up a slope, above cold pooling, below the exposed crest, with drainage and no dead wood overhead. A campsite should be chosen for the weather that may arrive at 3 in the morning, not for the comfort you feel at sunset. I look for old flood marks, channels cut through leaves, exposed roots, and wind-polished gaps. A flat patch is not automatically safe. Water and cold both remember the easiest way downhill. Number 9. The Widowmaker. My father walked a slow circle before putting down his pack. Mostly he looked up. Dead limbs caught in the canopy can fall without warning, especially in wind. Some weigh hundreds of pounds. The check takes less than a minute. Study every tree above the tent, fire, and sitting area. Look for dead tops, split trunks, hanging branches, and storm damage. If something worries you, move. People spend 20 minutes finding level ground and never inspect the sky above it. The ground may make you uncomfortable. A falling limb can make the campsite final. Number 8. Walking out at night. Stay put is good advice when you are injured, truly lost, or surrounded by dangerous terrain. But there are moments when wet clothing, falling temperature, and a known drainage make movement the safer choice. Walking creates heat. Stopping removes it. On a clear night, a creek or ridge can sometimes provide a reliable line if you already know where it leads. I have walked out in darkness because wading in soaked clothing would have worsened the situation. This requires judgment, not bravado. If the route is uncertain, cliffs are nearby, or visibility is poor, stopping may still be right. Before moving, I mark the last known point, protect my light, slow my pace, and resist every shortcut through steep ground. The secret is knowing which danger is growing faster and refusing to create a second emergency while escaping the first. Number 7, the lay-by. My grandmother could tell you in January how many jars, potatoes, beans, and pieces of firewood remained. She counted before winter, during the lay-by period when crops were finishing and preparation took over. Food was canned, dried, smoked, or cellared. Roof seams were checked. Wood was split to a number, not a feeling. Roads might close and stores might be unreachable, so hope was not part of the inventory. Modern abundance makes this look like anxiety. It is arithmetic. Preparation is simply counting what you have before the season removes your easiest choices. Number 6, the second opinion. I have never regretted asking an old person. I have regretted staying silent. The oldest residents knew which spring failed in drought, which hollow flooded first, which hillside slipped after 3 days of rain, and where an abandoned road still crossed the ridge. That information rarely appears in a field guide because it belongs to one specific place. Internet knowledge is broad, local memory is deep. When the question concerns a particular mountain, creek, or season, the person who has watched it for 70 years may hold the best map available. I ask what changed, what failed once, and what everybody avoids without discussing. Those answers rarely appear on signs. Google knows plenty. It has never spent a winter on your ridge. These last 5 secrets are principles more than tricks. Mountain survival was never one prepared man carrying everything. Different families held different knowledge. Plants, weather, animals, building, food. The holler itself was the backup system. Asking was not weakness. Cooperation was part of self-reliance. The final entries show how that shared habit shaped decisions when the stakes were highest. Number 5, still water sign. I once watched a log jam release upstream. Before the surge arrived, part of the creek went strangely flat and dark. Stillness where water normally moves can signal a blockage, deep undercut bank, altered flow, or another change worth investigating. It is not proof of danger, but it is a reason to stop, back away from the edge, and look upstream before wading. Old mountain people noticed anomalies because the wrong kind of calm could precede sudden movement. Still water in the right place is a pool. Still water in the wrong place is a question. Number 4, the 3 fire rule. I carry 3 ways to make fire that fail for different reasons. Not 3 identical lighters, different systems. A lighter may empty or struggle in cold. Matches can become wet. A ferro rod or practiced friction method demands dry tinder and skill, but does not depend on fuel in the same way. The point is overlapping failure conditions. If one method fails because of moisture, another should not fail for the exact same reason. One flame source is convenience. 3 independent methods are a plan. I keep tinder protected separately because 3 ignition methods mean little if every dry shaving sits in the same wet pocket. Practice all of them before darkness, wind, and numb fingers become part of the lesson. Redundancy only works when one failure cannot reach everything at once. Number 3, the listening stop. The best tracker I knew moved slower than anyone else. Every 15 or 20 minutes, he stopped completely and listened. Your own footsteps, clothing, and breathing hide information. Once still, you hear the creek before seeing it, wind changing high in the canopy, birds reacting ahead, or an animal moving across your path. The pause also breaks the tunnel vision that makes people walk past shelter, water, and landmarks. Distance feels productive. Attention often saves more time. During those pauses, I turn slowly, compare what I hear in every direction, and look behind me so the return route becomes familiar rather than surprising. The mountain speaks constantly, but it rarely raises its voice above yours. Number 2, the weather window. A wide halo around the moon forms when ice crystals in high cirrus clouds bend moonlight. Those clouds often arrive ahead of a weather system, so the ring can warn of precipitation within roughly the next day. Red sky can also offer context. In regions where weather generally moves west to east, a red western sky near sunset may accompany clearing air, while red light in the east at morning may reveal moisture ahead. Neither sign is perfect. I compare them with cloud movement, wind, pressure, and season. I ignored a moon halo once and slept without improving my shelter. Rain arrived before daylight, the firewood was exposed, and every task that should have taken 2 minutes took 20 with cold hands. The sign did not guarantee rain. It offered time. I wasted that time once. Once was enough. Number 1. The debt you pay attention. Stand beside the creek from the beginning. The limestone shelf, the dry moss, the weather changing before the forecast did. Every secret in this list is the same skill wearing different clothes. Reading a ridge is spatial attention. Bark side-up stacking is future attention. A feather stick is attention to material. A spring box is attention to systems. Wool is attention to consequences. The listening stop is attention made deliberate. They are not 25 separate abilities. They are 25 ways of staying present. The old mountain people were not born knowing more. They practiced noticing because their tools, food, weather, animals, and neighbors required it. Modern life offers to do that noticing for us. A notification tells us the storm is coming. A machine reports the failure. A store replaces what we did not prepare. That trade feels harmless until the signal disappears, the road closes, or the machine stops. The knowledge is not truly gone. It remains in the landscape, in old structures, in repeated habits, and in people who remember. The trouble is that knowledge needs use. A skill described but never practiced becomes a story. A story repeated without understanding becomes decoration. Unused knowledge fades quickly, even when everyone agrees it matters. That is why I do not measure self-reliance by how much equipment a person owns. I measure it by what remains when one piece of equipment disappears. Can you find direction when the screen goes dark? Can you recognize bad weather before it reaches the ridge? Can you protect water, heat, food, and tools with materials already around you? More importantly, do you know who nearby understands what you do not? The old mountain standard was never perfection. It was enough awareness to avoid the first mistake, enough preparation to survive the second, and enough humility to ask for help before the third became permanent. That kind of judgment grows slowly. You build it by watching ordinary things under ordinary conditions, long before cold, darkness, hunger, or fear makes every lesson harder to learn properly. Choose one thing from this list this week. Read a ridge. Look above your campsite. Listen after you stop walking. Watch where cold settles after sunset. Do not search for the answer first. Observe, then compare what you noticed with reliable information. Which of these 25 would you bring back first, and who taught you something similar? Tell that story while someone is still able to hear it. Knowledge weighs nothing. It needs no charging and loses no signal when weather moves in. It can cross generations in a sentence, a demonstration, or one quiet walk beside somebody who knows the ground. The only way to lose it is to stop paying attention. Don't do that.